The massive space station hung in the void like a glittering jewel. Ambassador Jake Murphy pressed his face against the small window of his transport ship and watched the Galactic Council headquarters grow larger. After 3 years of visiting this place, it still took his breath away. The station was bigger than Earth's moon and housed the most powerful beings in the galaxy. Jake straightened his blue diplomatic uniform and checked his notes one more time. Today was supposed to be a routine meeting about trade agreements. Earth needed more rare metals, and the Council controlled most of the good mining worlds. As the newest member of the galactic community, humanity had to play by the rules if they wanted to survive out here among the stars. The docking bay was enormous. Ships from dozens of different worlds sat in neat rows. Jake recognized the crystal vessels of the Zephyrians and the dark metal warships of the Krulon. His own small human transport looked like a toy next to these massive alien ships. "Ambassador Murphy," a voice called out as Jake stepped onto the docking platform. A tall, thin creature made of what looked like living crystal approached him. This was Velthara, one of the Zephyrian assistants he had worked with before. "The Council is ready for you." Jake followed the alien through corridors that stretched for miles. The walls showed images of the galaxy's greatest achievements over thousands of years: massive cities on distant worlds, incredible works of art, scientific discoveries that had changed everything. Humans appeared in none of these images. They were too new, too small to matter yet. The council chamber was the size of a football stadium. 12 massive thrones arranged in a circle dominated the center of the room. Each throne was designed for a different species. The Zephyrian seats were made of pure crystal that sang softly in the air. The Krulon thrones were carved from black stone and covered in ancient symbols. The Vorthak, a hive-mind species, sat in a cluster of smaller chairs that moved and shifted like they were alive. Jake had been in this room many times, but it never got easier. The beings who sat in these thrones controlled the fate of trillions of people across the galaxy. They had ruled for thousands of years, and they made sure everyone knew it. "Ambassador Murphy," boomed a voice from the largest throne. Council Overseer Zaltharan was ancient even by Zephyrian standards. His crystal body was so clear it was almost invisible, and his voice echoed like music in a cathedral. "Please approach the center circle." Jake walked to the small platform in the middle of the chamber. The eyes of a dozen different species watched his every move. He had learned to read alien expressions over the years. Today something was different. The usual boredom was gone. Instead, he saw something that made his stomach drop: cold determination. "We have called you here today to discuss humanity's future in our galactic community," Zaltharan continued. His voice was formal, which was never a good sign. "The Council has been watching your species carefully since you joined us 3 years ago." Jake felt sweat on his forehead despite the cool air. "I hope we have met your expectations, Overseer." A new voice cut through the air like a knife. "That is precisely the problem." General Vex Kimara of the Krulon leaned forward in his throne. The massive reptilian creature was covered in scars from 100 battles. His yellow eyes fixed on Jake like a predator studying prey. "Your species has exceeded our expectations in ways that concern us." The chamber fell silent. Jake could hear his own heartbeat. "I don't understand, General. We have followed every rule, respected every treaty. We have contributed to the common defense and paid all required tributes." "Yes," hissed another voice. This came from the Vorthak cluster. When the hive mind spoke, dozens of voices joined together in perfect harmony. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. "You have followed the rules, but you have also built 47 new warships in the last year. You have established military bases in 12 star systems. You have formed defense alliances with 6 minor species." Jake's mouth went dry. Everything the Vorthak said was true, but it was all legal under council law. "Our expansion has been within the limits set by the membership agreement. We have threatened no one. Your rapid growth threatens the stability of our carefully maintained order," Zaltharan said. His crystal form began to glow brighter, a sign of strong emotion. "In 3 short years, humanity has advanced faster than any species in our recorded history. You acquire new technology at an alarming rate. You form alliances with species we have specifically kept isolated. You ask too many questions about our history and our methods." The truth hit Jake like a physical blow. This wasn't about rules or laws. The Council was afraid of humanity. They saw how quickly humans learned, how fast they built, how easily they made friends with other species. And they didn't like it. The Council has reached a decision, Zaltharon announced. Humanity will be given one final opportunity to prove they can exist peacefully within our galactic order. You have 30 standard days to comply with the following requirements. A holographic display appeared in the air above Jake's head. The terms were devastating. Humanity must surrender their growing fleet to Council control. All human military installations must be dismantled. Earth's government must submit to direct Council oversight. Worst of all, the human population must be relocated to designated agricultural worlds where they could be properly supervised. These terms are impossible, Jake said, his voice barely a whisper. You're asking us to give up our freedom, our homes, everything that makes us human. You misunderstand, General Vex Kimara said, with what might have been a smile. We are not asking. These are the terms of your continued existence. Comply, and humanity will live as valued contributors to our galactic community. Refuse, and we will be forced to take more direct action. Jake looked around the chamber at the faces of the other Council members. Some looked sympathetic but said nothing. Others seemed bored, like this was routine business. Only the 3 senior species showed any real emotion, and that emotion was cold satisfaction. I need to return to Earth to discuss these terms with my government, Jake said finally. Of course, Zaltharon replied. You have 30 days. Use them wisely. As Jake turned to leave, something strange happened. 3 younger Council members from minor species quietly approached him. When the senior members weren't looking, they each pressed small data chips into his hand. Their expressions were desperate, almost pleading. Jake pocketed the chips without looking at them. As he walked back through the endless corridors toward his ship, one thought kept repeating in his mind. Humanity had just been given an ultimatum that no free species could accept. The question now was what they would do about it. The transport ship's engines hummed to life as Jake began the long journey back to Earth. In his pocket, the data chips felt heavier than planets. Whatever information they contained, he had a feeling it was going to change everything. The emergency meeting began at dawn in the most secure room on Earth. President Lisa Carter sat at the head of a polished steel table, her gray hair pulled back and her face grim. Around her sat the most powerful people in human space: Admiral Ross Baker, commander of the Space Navy; Dr. Helen Price, head of alien research; and General Paul Green, who defended Earth itself. Jake Murphy had returned from the Council just 6 hours ago. He still looked tired from the long journey, but his report had been clear and terrifying. The data chips hidden in his jacket pocket might hold answers, but first they needed to understand exactly what they were facing. Tell me again about their exact words, President Carter said. Her voice was steady, but Jake could see the worry in her eyes. She had led humanity through first contact, through joining the galactic community, through 3 years of careful diplomacy. Now all of that work might be worthless. They want us to surrender our fleet, dismantle our defenses, and move our entire population to farming worlds under their direct control, Jake repeated. They gave us 30 days. Admiral Baker slammed his fist on the table. The old sailor had fought pirates in the outer system and defended Earth from asteroid strikes. His weathered face was red with anger. 30 days to become slaves, you mean? There's no way we can accept these terms. And there's no way we can fight them, General Green said quietly. The younger man had studied every Council military action for the past 3 years. Their combined fleets outnumber us 1,000 to 1. They have weapons we can barely understand and shields that our best missiles can't penetrate. Dr. Price spoke up from her seat near the window. The brilliant scientist had spent her career studying alien technology and culture. There might be a third option, but first we need to see what's on those data chips. Jake pulled the 3 small devices from his pocket. They looked harmless enough, just tiny squares of blue metal. But as Dr. Price connected them to the secure computer system, the information they contained made everyone in the room go silent. The first chip contained historical records going back 2,000 years. The data showed a clear pattern that made Jake's blood run cold. 17 different species had been given ultimatums exactly like the one humanity had just received. 16 of them had accepted the terms and surrendered their freedom. Today, those species lived on agricultural worlds, providing food and resources to the Council, while being treated like pets or livestock. The 17th species, called the Kithira, had chosen to fight. The records showed what happened next. Council fleets had surrounded their home system and bombarded every planet until nothing lived. The Kethera had been completely erased from existence, their worlds turned into lifeless rocks floating in space. This is their standard procedure, Dr. Price said, her voice barely above a whisper. They wait until a species becomes advanced enough to be useful, but not advanced enough to threaten them. Then they give this ultimatum: surrender or die. The second data chip contained technical information about Council military capabilities. The data showed something surprising. Much of their advanced technology wasn't actually theirs. They had inherited most of it from an ancient species that had vanished millions of years ago. The Council species had become lazy, relying on old technology instead of developing new ideas. Look at this, Admiral Baker said, pointing to a section of the technical readout. Their weapons are powerful, but they're also old. The design hasn't changed in thousands of years. They've stopped innovating because they didn't need to. No one has challenged them. The third data chip was the most important. It contained a message from the 3 young council members who had risked their lives to pass this information to Jake. The message was simple, but powerful. You are not the first to face this choice, but you might be the first with a real chance to escape. The Andromedans can help you. Find them in the void sector. They have been waiting. President Carter leaned back in her chair. The Andromedans. I've heard rumors about them for years. Refugees from another galaxy who stay hidden in empty space. More than rumors, Dr. Price said excitedly. I've been tracking strange energy signatures in the void sector for months. Ships that appear and disappear without using any technology we recognize. If they're from another galaxy, they might have knowledge that surpasses even the Council. Admiral Baker stood up and walked to the large window that showed Earth's blue sky. Even if we could contact these Andromedans, what could they do? We can't evacuate 12 billion people in 30 days. It's impossible. Maybe not, General Green said slowly. He had been quiet for most of the meeting, but now his eyes were bright with an idea. Admiral, what's the current status of Project Exodus? Admiral Baker turned around with a surprised look. That's classified at the highest level. How do you know about that? Because I helped design the security for it, General Green replied. And right now it might be our only hope. President Carter raised her hand. I'm obviously not cleared for this project. Someone want to explain? Admiral Baker looked around the room, then made a decision. Project Exodus has been running in secret for 5 years. We started it after some of our intelligence people suggested we might someday need to disappear quickly. We've been building generation ships in hidden locations throughout the outer system. The room went silent. Jake felt his heart racing. Generation ships? How many people can they hold? All of them, Admiral Baker said simply. 12 ships, each designed to carry 1 billion people safely to another star system. They're powered by experimental drives that we've been developing with help from, well, let's just say we've had some outside assistance. Dr. Price's eyes went wide. The Andromedans. You've been in contact with them already. Admiral Baker nodded. For 3 years now. They approached us shortly after we joined the Council. They warned us this day would come and offered to help us prepare. They've been sharing technology with us in secret. President Carter stood up and walked to the center of the room. Her mind was racing with possibilities. So we could actually evacuate Earth's entire population? Take everyone to another galaxy where the Council can't follow? In theory, yes, Admiral Baker said. But there's a problem. We need time to finish the evacuation. And we need to make the Council think we're actually complying with their demands. If they discover what we're really doing, they'll attack immediately. General Green smiled for the first time since the meeting began. That's where the real genius comes in. We don't just evacuate. We make them think we're still here. Over the next 2 hours, the group worked out the basic plan. It was audacious beyond belief, but it might actually work. Humanity would appear to surrender while secretly evacuating the entire population. They would use advanced holographic technology to create fake human cities and populations that would fool Council sensors. The real humans would escape to the Andromeda Galaxy, while the Council thought they were managing obedient farmers on agricultural worlds. The technical challenges are enormous, Dr. Price warned. We need to evacuate 12 billion people without the Council noticing. We need to create holographic duplicates sophisticated enough to fool the most advanced sensors in the galaxy, and we need to do it all in 30 days. Then we better get started, President Carter said. She looked around the room at her advisors and friends. If we're going to do this, we need absolute secrecy. As far as the rest of the government knows, we're preparing to negotiate with the Council. Only a few people can know the real plan. Jake Murphy stood up, still holding the data chips that had changed everything. What about the other species? The ones who helped us by passing this information? We can't just abandon them. We won't, President Carter promised. If this works, if we successfully escape, we'll find a way to help them too. But first we need to save ourselves. As the meeting broke up, each person had their assignment. Admiral Baker would accelerate the generation ship construction. Dr. Price would begin developing the holographic deception systems. General Green would coordinate the secret evacuation procedures. And Jake would return to the council in a few days to begin the careful process of appearing to surrender, while actually preparing for the greatest escape in human history. Outside the window, the sun was setting over Earth's capital city. 12 billion people went about their daily lives, unaware that their entire civilization was about to attempt something that had never been done before. In 30 days, humanity would either be free or extinct. There was no middle ground. The hidden base on the far side of Luna buzzed with activity that never stopped. Commander Nick Stone stood in the main control room, watching dozens of screens that showed evacuation ships moving through space like a carefully planned dance. Each ship carried 50,000 people, and they launched every 6 hours around the clock. Status report, Nick called out to his operations team. The room was full of the best coordinators humanity had, people who had spent years planning for this moment without knowing if it would ever come. Ship Group 7 just cleared the asteroid belt, reported Lieutenant Mary Cox from her station. Group 6 is loading at Europa Station. Group 5 reached the first rendezvous point with no problems. She looked up from her screens with tired but hopeful eyes. We're actually ahead of schedule. Nick allowed himself a small smile. 3 weeks into the evacuation, they had already moved 8 billion people out of the inner system. The council had no idea. As far as their sensors could tell, human space was functioning normally. Cities were busy, ships moved along regular trade routes, and the government was publicly preparing to accept the council's terms. The secret was Project Mirror, the most advanced holographic system ever created. Dr. Susan Lee had been working around the clock to perfect it, and the results were incredible. Every major human city now had a perfect holographic duplicate that could fool even close-range scans. The fake humans went to work, attended meetings, and even had conversations with alien visitors. Nick, you need to see this, called Dr. Lee from her station across the room. The small woman looked exhausted but excited. She had been running on coffee and determination for 3 weeks straight. I just got confirmation from Earth. The council inspection team spent 6 hours in New Tokyo yesterday. They scanned everything with their best equipment and found nothing suspicious. The holograms held up under direct inspection, Nick asked, walking over to look at her data. Better than we hoped. The quantum computers are generating responses so realistic that the fake humans are actually developing their own personalities. The council team even had lunch with the holographic mayor of New Tokyo and complimented him on the city's progress in preparing for relocation. Nick shook his head in amazement. Sometimes human engineering surprised even him. Any word from the generation ships? Captain Turner reports that the Defiance is fully loaded and standing by at the edge of the system. Captain Collins confirms that the New Horizon will be ready for final departure in 4 days. All 12 ships are either loaded or nearly loaded. The generation ships were humanity's greatest achievement. Each one was 5 miles long and could support 1 billion people for decades. They had complete ecosystems, manufacturing facilities, and defensive systems that used technology borrowed from the Andromedans. More importantly, they could travel faster than anything in council space. Sir, Lieutenant Cox called out urgently. We have a priority message from Ambassador Murphy. Nick hurried back to the main communication station. Jake's face appeared on the screen and he looked worried. Behind him was the interior of his diplomatic ship as he traveled back from another meeting with the council. Nick, we have a problem, Jake said without greeting. General Vex Kamara is getting suspicious. He asked some very specific questions about human military production that I couldn't answer without seeming evasive. I think they're planning an early inspection of our military facilities. When? Nick asked. Tomorrow. Maybe the day after. They're sending a full investigation team to check our compliance with the disarmament requirements. If they find out our military bases are actually empty and all our ships are gone, the whole operation is blown. Dr. Lee was already working at her station before Nick could give orders. I can extend the holographic projections to cover the military facilities, but it will stretch our power systems to the limit. We might not be able to maintain the deception for more than a few days. How many people are still in the inner system? Nick asked Lieutenant Cox. About 3 billion, mostly in the final loading groups, plus the skeleton crews maintaining the holographic systems. Nick made a quick calculation in his head. If the Council discovered the deception in the next few days, they would have caught most of humanity still in the solar system. The generation ships could escape, but billions of people would be trapped. Change of plans, Nick announced to the room. We accelerate everything. All remaining personnel get loaded onto emergency transports immediately. Forget the scheduled departures. I want everyone out of the inner system in 48 hours. Sir, that's going to be chaos, Lieutenant Cox warned. We don't have enough ships for that kind of rapid evacuation. Then we make more ships, Nick replied. Strip every piece of non-essential equipment from every vessel we have. Convert cargo haulers, passenger liners, even small personal craft. If it can hold people and reach the outer system, it gets used. Dr. Lee looked up from her calculations. I can maintain the military facility holograms for 3 days maximum. After that, the power requirements will start affecting the city projections. If they do a detailed inspection after that point, they'll find inconsistencies. 3 days should be enough, Nick said, hoping he was right. Jake, can you delay their inspection somehow? Jake's image on the screen looked thoughtful. I might be able to request a formal ceremony to mark humanity's acceptance of the Council terms. Suggest that we want to show proper respect for the transition. That might buy us an extra day or two while they prepare for the ceremony. Do it, Nick ordered. Every hour helps. Over the next 36 hours, human space became a carefully controlled chaos. Ships that had never been designed to carry passengers were hastily converted with basic life support and emergency seating. Families grabbed whatever they could carry and rushed to departure points across the system. Children who had been born on Earth said goodbye to the only world they had ever known. Captain Alex Turner stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching the final groups of evacuation ships arrive at the rendezvous point beyond Pluto. His generation ship was now home to 1 billion people, most of whom were still adjusting to the idea that they would never see Earth again. Captain, reported his communications officer, we just received confirmation from all 12 generation ships. Total population aboard is 11.9 billion people. We're only missing about 100 million. Who's not accounted for? Alex asked. The skeleton crews maintaining the holographic systems, some deep space workers who can't reach evacuation points in time, and volunteers who chose to stay behind to maintain the deception as long as possible. Alex nodded grimly. He had expected this. Some people would have to be left behind to make the plan work. They were heroes, every one of them, buying time with their own freedom so that the rest of humanity could escape. Back on Luna Base, Nick Stone was now part of the skeleton crew. Most of his people had been evacuated, leaving only essential personnel to maintain the holographic systems. The base felt empty and strange with so few people. Final status report, he called out to the handful of technicians still working at their stations. All city holograms are stable and responding normally, Dr. Lee reported. She had refused evacuation, insisting that her expertise was needed to maintain the deception. Military facility projections are holding but showing strain. I estimate we have maybe 18 hours before they start showing obvious glitches. That should be enough, Nick said. He looked at the main display showing the positions of all 12 generation ships. They were spread out across the edge of the solar system, using Andromedan cloaking technology to remain invisible to Council sensors. In a few more hours, they would begin the journey to Andromeda Galaxy. Sir, reported the communications technician, one of only 3 people still monitoring the channels. Priority message from Ambassador Murphy. Jake's face appeared on screen one final time. He was in the Council chamber now, surrounded by the alien beings who thought they were about to gain control of humanity. The ceremony's about to begin, Jake said quietly. General Vex Kimara will start the inspection tour of our facilities immediately afterward. You have maybe 6 hours. Understood, Nick replied. Jake, it's been an honor working with you. Same here, Jake said with a sad smile. See you in Andromeda. The transmission ended. Nick looked around at the few dozen people still with him on Luna Base. They would maintain the holographic systems until the Council discovered the truth. Then they would become prisoners or worse, but their sacrifice would give humanity a new start among the stars. All stations, this is Commander Stone, Nick announced over the general communication system. Execute final departure protocol. All generation ships are cleared to begin translation to hyperspace. Good luck, and see you on the other side. On screens around the control room, Nick watched as 12 massive ships disappeared one by one into hyperspace, carrying the future of humanity toward a distant galaxy. The greatest escape in galactic history had begun. General Vex Kamara stepped off his command ship onto the docking platform of Luna Base, with the confidence of a predator that had already won. The massive Krulon warrior was accompanied by 20 specialists carrying the most advanced scanning equipment in Council space. Today, they would confirm that humanity had properly surrendered their military capabilities as ordered. "General," greeted Commander Nick Stone, walking forward with a crisp salute. Behind him stood a handful of human military officers, all looking appropriately defeated. Nick had spent hours practicing the right expression of reluctant submission. "Welcome to Luna Base. We are ready for your inspection." The general's yellow eyes studied Nick carefully. Something about this whole situation bothered him, though he couldn't put his finger on what. The humans had appeared to comply perfectly with every demand. They had publicly announced their acceptance of council terms. Their ambassador had seemed genuinely resigned to the new arrangement. But Vex Kamara hadn't survived 100 battles by ignoring his instincts. "Show me your weapons." "Production facilities first," the general ordered in his gravelly voice. Nick led the inspection team through corridors that should have been bustling with activity. Instead, they saw only the carefully programmed holographic workers that Dr. Lee had created. The fake humans moved equipment, operated machinery, and even nodded respectfully to the alien visitors. "Production has been scaled back as ordered," Nick explained as they walked. "We are converting military manufacturing to civilian purposes. Food processing, agricultural equipment, that sort of thing." One of the council technicians ran a detailed scan of a large manufacturing bay. The holographic projection was so perfect that his instruments registered thousands of tons of equipment and raw materials that didn't actually exist. "Energy readings are consistent with civilian manufacturing," the technician reported to General Vex Kamara. "No weapons-grade materials detected." They spent 6 hours touring Luna Base, checking every facility that had once produced humanity's growing military might. The holograms held perfectly. Fake human workers explained the conversion process in detail. Holographic supervisors provided production reports showing the transition from military to civilian manufacturing. But General Vex Kamara's unease grew stronger with each passing hour. The humans were being too cooperative. After 3 years of subtle resistance and clever negotiations, they had suddenly become completely obedient. It didn't fit their pattern. "I want to see Earth," the general announced as they finished the Luna Base inspection.
"Specifically, I want to visit the cities where your population is supposedly preparing for relocation." Nick's heart raced, but his expression remained calm.
"Of course, General. Though I should warn you that the cities are quite busy right now. The relocation preparations have everyone working overtime." 2 hours later, General Vex Kamara stood in the center of New Tokyo's main plaza, watching thousands of humans go about their daily business. Children played in parks while their parents worked in nearby buildings. Traffic moved along busy streets. Everything looked normal, but the general's trained eye began to notice details that bothered him. The humans moved in patterns that were just slightly too regular. Conversations happened at predictable intervals. The same groups of children seemed to be playing the same games in multiple locations. Most disturbing of all, when he tried to approach individual humans for random conversations, they somehow always managed to be called away before he could ask detailed questions. "Run a deep molecular scan on that building," he ordered one of his technicians, pointing to a nearby office complex. The technician activated his equipment and studied the readouts with growing confusion. "Sir, I'm getting some very strange readings. The building registers as fully occupied, but the molecular signatures are inconsistent. It's like the people inside are there and not there at the same time." General Vex Kamara felt his blood go cold. "Expand the scan to the entire plaza." Within minutes, the terrible truth became clear. The sophisticated council scanners revealed what human eyes could not see. The plaza was empty. The buildings were empty. The entire city was a holographic projection so advanced that it had fooled even council technology, until they looked for the right signatures. "Where are the humans?" the general roared, his voice echoing across the empty plaza. Nick Stone materialized from his hiding spot in an underground bunker, along with a dozen technicians who had been maintaining the holographic systems. There was no point in hiding anymore. The deception had been discovered. Gone, Nick said simply. Every last one of them. They've been leaving for weeks while you watched fake humans go about their fake lives. The general's massive claws extended as his anger reached dangerous levels. Where did they go? Our sensors would have detected any fleet movement. Would they? Nick asked with a slight smile. You've been so confident in your technology, but you've forgotten that other species can innovate too. Especially when they're fighting for their freedom. General Vex Kimara activated his emergency communication system. All Council fleets begin immediate search of human space. Find their evacuation ships. They cannot have gone far. For the next 3 days, every Council ship in the galaxy searched for humanity's missing population. They scanned every star system in human space, checked every asteroid belt and outer planet where ships might hide. Their sensors swept through hyperspace looking for the energy signatures of human vessels. They found nothing. 12 billion people had simply vanished without a trace. It was as if they had never existed. On the 4th day, the Council convened an emergency session. The massive chamber was filled with tension as the galaxy's most powerful beings tried to understand how they had been completely outwitted by the species they considered least threatening. This is impossible, declared Overseer Zal Theron, his crystal form pulsing with agitation. Our technology is superior to anything the humans possessed. They could not have hidden an entire civilization from our sensors. Yet they did, hissed the Vorthak Collective. For the first time in recorded history, the hive mind species seemed uncertain. Our information networks detected no sign of mass evacuation. Our spy systems reported normal human activity until the moment of discovery. Either our technology has fundamental flaws, or the humans have access to capabilities we do not understand. General Vex Kimara stood before the Council, his career and reputation in ruins. The humans had help. No single species could accomplish this deception alone. Someone with advanced technology assisted them. Who? Demanded Overseer Zal Theron. Every species in our galaxy is accounted for. Every civilization is under our observation. Perhaps, suggested a new voice, the assistance came from outside our galaxy. The chamber fell silent. The speaker was Counselor Dax Muran, one of the oldest members of the Council. His species, the Eldari, were known for their vast knowledge of galactic history. Explain, ordered Zal Theron. There have been rumors for decades of ships appearing in the void sector, vessels that use technology we cannot identify or track. We assumed they were ancient artifacts or experimental craft. But what if they were scouts from another galaxy? What if the humans made contact with a civilization that possesses technology superior to our own? The implications hit every Council member at the same time. For thousands of years, they had ruled the galaxy because they possessed the most advanced technology. But if the humans had allies from outside their galaxy, allies with superior capabilities, then the entire foundation of Council power was threatened. Even if this is true, General Vex Kimara said desperately, the humans cannot have gone far. A fleet large enough to carry 12 billion people would require enormous resources. They will need to stop somewhere to resupply, to refuel their ships. When they do, we will find them. But as days turned to weeks and weeks turned to months, no trace of humanity was found. Search fleets scoured neighboring star systems. Diplomatic contacts were made with distant civilizations. Rewards were offered for any information about human whereabouts. Nothing. It was as if 12 billion people had simply stepped out of reality itself. Worse, news of humanity's successful escape began to spread throughout Council space. The species that had been conquered and subjugated over the millennia started to whisper among themselves. If the humans could disappear completely, what else might be possible? For the first time in recorded history, the subject species began to question whether the Council was truly invincible. On distant agricultural worlds, the Zilonians stopped their grain shipments. In the Outer Rim mining systems, the Tharks began sabotaging their own equipment. Throughout Council space, the carefully maintained order that had kept the galaxy stable for thousands of years began to crack. The humans hadn't just escaped. They had started a revolution simply by proving that escape was possible. Council Overseer Zal Theron stood alone in his private chamber, staring out at the stars through a massive crystal window. Somewhere out there, 12 billion humans were building a new civilization beyond Council reach. and their success would inspire others to follow their example. For the first time in his ancient life, Zaltharon felt something he had never experienced before: fear. The galaxy was changing, and the Council might not survive what was coming. 5 years had passed since humanity vanished from Council space and the galaxy had changed beyond recognition. Captain Alex Turner stood on the observation deck of the Defiance, watching the construction of New Earth's first orbital shipyard through the massive windows. Below him stretched a world that had become more beautiful than the Earth they had left behind. "Captain," called his communications officer from the bridge. "Priority message from President Murphy. He wants to see you in the government complex within the hour." Alex nodded and took one last look at the view. New Earth was humanity's masterpiece, a world terraformed with Andromedan technology in just 3 years. Cities of crystal and metal rose from green valleys, while floating platforms drifted through the sky like gentle clouds. 12 billion humans had found not just a new home, but a better one. The journey to the government complex took him through the heart of New Geneva, humanity's new capital city. The streets were busy with people who looked healthier and happier than he remembered from Earth. Children played in parks that defied gravity, while artists created sculptures from pure light and sound. This was what humans could accomplish when they were free to innovate without restrictions. President Jake Murphy was waiting in his office when Alex arrived. The former ambassador had aged well in his new role, though his hair was now completely gray. Beside him sat Admiral Ross Baker, Dr. Helen Price, and several other leaders Alex recognized from the desperate days of the evacuation. "Alex, thank you for coming," Jake said, gesturing to an empty chair. "We need to discuss something important." Alex sat down, curious about the serious expressions around the room. "What's the situation?" Dr. Price activated a holographic display that showed star charts of their old galaxy. Red indicators marked dozens of star systems throughout Council space. "We've been monitoring the situation back home through our long-range sensors and intelligence networks. The Council is losing control. The rebellion we started by escaping has spread beyond anything we imagined," Admiral Baker added. 17 different species have now broken free from Council rule. Some disappeared like we did, others are fighting open wars, and a few have simply declared independence and dared the Council to stop them. The display zoomed in on specific systems where battles were raging. Alex could see the tactical report scrolling past, showing Council fleets being defeated by species they had considered inferior for thousands of years. The Zalonians developed their own cloaking technology and vanished overnight, taking their entire fleet with them, Dr. Price continued. The Tharks captured a Council superweapon and used it to destroy 3 military bases before disappearing into deep space. Most remarkably, the Cathani somehow rebuilt their civilization after the Council thought they had exterminated them completely. Alex felt a mixture of pride and concern. This is what we hoped would happen, but it's moving faster than we expected. What does the Council's response look like? That's the problem, Jake said grimly. They're getting desperate. Our intelligence sources report that the senior Council members are planning something called the Final Solution Protocol. We don't know exactly what it involves, but the name suggests something terrible. Admiral Baker pulled up another display showing recent Council military movements. They're withdrawing all their fleets from the Outer Rim and concentrating them near the galactic core. Our analysts think they're planning to abandon large portions of the galaxy and establish a smaller, more defensible territory, which means they'll be willing to destroy any species they can't control, Dr. Price added quietly. Billions of innocent people could die. Alex studied the tactical displays for several minutes, his mind racing through possibilities. The humans had achieved their dream of freedom, but they couldn't ignore the suffering their escape had inadvertently caused. "What are our options?" he asked finally. Jake leaned forward in his chair. 3 days ago, we received an unexpected communication. The Council wants to negotiate. Alex's eyebrows rose in surprise. With us after 5 years of searching for us without success. Apparently they've given up on finding us or forcing us to return, Admiral Baker said. Instead, they want our help in stabilizing the galaxy. They're offering us full membership with unprecedented privileges if we return and help them restore order. Full membership, Alex repeated. That's what we wanted 5 years ago, before they tried to enslave us. The offer includes complete independence for human space, control over our own military forces, and a voice in council decisions. Jake continued. They're essentially offering us everything we wanted, plus the right to help govern other species. Dr. Price shook her head. It's too little, too late. The galaxy has moved beyond the point where the old system can be restored. Too many species have tasted freedom now. Alex stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the thriving human civilization they had built. What does our population think about all this? We've been conducting surveys and holding town meetings across all our colonies, Jake replied. The results are mixed. About 30% want to return and help establish a more democratic galactic government. 20% want to go back specifically to help liberate the remaining enslaved species. 40% want to stay here in Andromeda and build our new civilization without interference. The remaining 10% are undecided. And what about you? Alex asked, turning back to face the group. What do you think we should do? Jake was quiet for a long moment. I think about the people who risked their lives to give us the information that made our escape possible. I think about the species that are fighting for their freedom right now, inspired by what we accomplished. And I think about the billions of innocent beings who might die if the Council implements this final solution protocol. Admiral Baker nodded agreement. We have capabilities now that far exceed what we had 5 years ago. Our technology is more advanced, our fleets are stronger, and we have allies the Council doesn't know about. If we're going to act, we have the power to make a real difference. Dr. Price activated a new display showing the current state of human military forces. Alex was impressed by what he saw. 12 massive fleets, each more powerful than the entire human Navy had been when they left Earth, ships, built with Andromedan technology that could outfight anything in Council space. But do we have the right to make that choice for everyone? Alex asked. We escaped to find freedom. Are we free if we immediately involve ourselves in another galactic war? Freedom isn't just about the right to be left alone, Jake said thoughtfully. It's also about the right to choose how you live and what you stand for. If we choose to help others find their freedom, that's still our choice to make. The debate continued for hours as they worked through the practical and ethical implications of each option. They could return to their home galaxy as liberators, working to establish a truly democratic galactic government. They could stay in Andromeda and build their new civilization while providing support to refugees from the ongoing conflicts. Or they could try to find a middle path that honored their obligations to both their own people and the galaxy they had left behind. Finally, Jake called for a break and stepped out onto his office balcony. Alex joined him there, looking up at the unfamiliar constellations of the Andromeda galaxy. You know what I think? Jake said after a while. I think we're asking the wrong question. We keep debating whether we should go back, but maybe the real question is what kind of people we want to be. What do you mean? 5 years ago, we ran away to save ourselves. It was the right choice, and I'm proud of what we accomplished. But now we have the chance to do something more. We can save others the way we saved ourselves. Alex nodded slowly. You're thinking about sending an answer to the Council. I'm thinking about sending a message to the entire galaxy, Jake replied. Not just to the Council, but to every species fighting for freedom and every being living under oppression. They returned to the conference room where the others were still debating options and analyzing tactical scenarios. Jake called for attention and walked to the center of the room. I've made my decision about how to respond to the Council's offer, he announced. I'm going to address both the Council and the galaxy as a whole. I want to explain what humanity stands for and what we're willing to do about it. Admiral Baker looked concerned. That will reveal our location and capabilities to the Council. Once they know where we are and how strong we've become, we lose the element of surprise. Good, Jake said firmly. I want them to know. I want everyone to know that humanity has not just survived, but thrived. I want the oppressed species to know they have allies, and I want the Council to know that their age of unchallenged dominance is over. Dr. Price activated the long-range communication systems that could reach across the vast distance between galaxies. Within minutes, the transmission array was ready to broadcast to every inhabited system in their former home. Jake stood before the recording devices and began to speak. His words would travel for months through the void between galaxies, but when they arrived, they would change everything. People of the galaxy, he began. 5 years ago, the Galactic Council watched as humanity vanished from their sight. They thought we had been defeated. They were wrong. We have not just survived. We have become something great.